When young Ethan Harrington extended his hand across the quiet dining room of the Beaumont, the most exclusive restaurant in uptown Chicago, the air grew so heavy it felt suffocating. Conversations halted, forks froze mid-air, and every pair of eyes locked on the small clearing between tables. Ethan, just 10 years old, trembled visibly. His thin legs, bound in steel braces, wobbled as he reached for Naomi Carter, the restaurant's only black waitress. The pianist had just begun a soft tune, and on impulse, Ethan had asked her to dance. "Sir, control your son," barked Mr. Halpern, the manager, his voice slicing through the tension. "This isn't a dance hall. Our staff aren't here to entertain." At the head of the table, Charles Harrington, CEO of Harrington Global Capital, one of the wealthiest men in America, felt his throat tighten. It was the first time he had dared bring his son to a public dinner since the car crash that had left Ethan partially paralyzed 2 years ago. "A mistake, perhaps, Ethan, sit down." The order was low but firm. Naomi stood frozen. In her 5 years serving there, she had perfected the art of invisibility, especially around men like Charles. But then, with calm defiance, she untied her apron and placed it on the tray. "My shift's over," she said. And to everyone's shock, she smiled gently at Ethan, took his small hand, and whispered, "I can't dance in an apron." "What do you think you're doing?" Charles demanded, rising sharply, accepting an invitation. "Sir," Naomi replied, steady as stone. Ethan dragged 1 foot forward, the metal of his brace scraping the floor. Naomi didn't guide him or rush him, she matched his uneven rhythm. "She'll be fired tomorrow," someone whispered at the next table, but Charles barely heard. A flash of memory struck him, his late wife, Clara, once dancing with Ethan in their living room. "It's not about perfection," she had said. "It's about connection." And now, as Ethan stumbled through his steps, Charles saw something shift in his boy's eyes, fear dissolving into concentration, shame giving way to fragile pride. For the first time since the accident, Ethan wasn't being helped. He was leading. "Mr. Harrington," the manager hissed, "she'll be disciplined immediately," but Charles didn't respond. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. When Naomi finally led Ethan back, she said formally, "Thank you for asking me. It was an honor." As she turned to leave, Charles stopped her. "Wait. What's your name?" "Naomi Carter, sir." Charles nodded slowly. "Naomi Carter." He handed her his business card. "My office. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. The room buzzed. Naomi accepted with a steady face, though her fingers trembled slightly. "Dad, why did you do that?" Ethan asked quietly. Charles looked at his son, and for the first time in 2 years, really saw him. The next morning, the glass walls of Harrington Tower gleamed in the sunlight. Naomi, dressed in her best bargain-bought blouse and skirt, stepped inside. Her nerves were steady, not fear, but determination. She was escorted by Ms. Langley, Charles's rigid assistant, who remarked coldly, "He had you fired, didn't he? Happens all the time. People like you lose jobs over powerful clients. People like me." Naomi asked calmly, "You know what I mean. Employees who don't know their place." Naomi smiled faintly. "And where is that place, exactly?" Moments later, she was shown into Charles's vast office overlooking the skyline. "Miss Carter," he said, controlled as ever. "Thank you for coming. Do you have a degree?" "Bachelor's in Child Development from Northwestern," Naomi answered evenly. "I started a master's in special education, but had to leave." Charles raised an eyebrow. "And you work as a waitress?" "I work 3 jobs. The restaurant, a bookstore, and tutoring when I can." He opened a folder. "I looked you up. You co-founded Step Forward 6 years ago, a dance program for children with disabilities. It's about to shut down." Naomi straightened. "With my sister, Leah, yes. Lack of funding. But I didn't come here to ask for money, Mr. Harrington. You asked me." Charles hesitated, then said, "I want you to work for me." Naomi blinked. "As A therapeutic companion. For Ethan. I have the best specialists, but yesterday, for the first time, he smiled. It was just a dance, Naomi replied softly. It was the first time he led, Charles corrected, struggling with the admission. I'll pay you 5 times what you make. No, Charles froze. Few people told him that word. I don't work for men who see only my skin or my class before my competence, Naomi said evenly. And your son deserves more than someone pretending to care. She set down a card. Step forward. Tuesdays and Thursdays. 4 p.m. Bring Ethan if you'd like. First class is free. And she left. The following week, Leah whispered breathlessly, Naomi, there's a Rolls-Royce outside. Guess who's in it? Through the window, Naomi saw Ethan in the back seat, fidgeting. Charles sat at the wheel, battling himself. He won't come in, Leah muttered. Don't underestimate a determined son, Naomi replied. To their astonishment, both Ethan and Charles walked inside. The community center looked nothing like Harrington Tower, peeling paint. Handmade posters with slogans like your rhythm, your rules. Children moved freely with canes, braces, or prosthetics. It looks chaotic, Charles muttered. There's structure, Naomi countered. Just not one you recognize. Ethan watched wide-eyed. Would you like to join? Naomi asked gently. He glanced at his father. Go on, Charles said tensely. As Naomi guided Ethan, Leah whispered to Charles, first day is hardest, for parents, not kids. An older woman entered, leaning on a cane. Dr. Evelyn Monroe, Leah breathed. The retired Harvard neuroscientist. You've rejected my proposals 3 times, Monroe told Charles sharply. Charles frowned. This is research. Adaptive dance, movement autonomy, neuroplasticity, Naomi explained. You knew who I was that night, Charles realized. Yes, Naomi admitted. But Ethan's choice to dance was real. I only followed. Soon reporters arrived. Step Forward had just published breakthrough results. Charles stiffened. You used my son, he accused. Naomi pointed at Ethan, now attempting his first unassisted step. Cameras flashed. The boy stumbled, but balanced. His father's eyes filled with tears. That's why we created this, Naomi whispered. Not perfect steps. First steps. For once, Charles had no defense. Before the press, he had to choose, retreat into arrogance, or follow his son's lead. When asked for comment, Charles took a deep breath. You know what's hardest for men like me? Admitting when we're wrong. The Harrington Foundation will fund Step Forward for 5 years, and build a rehabilitation center. On one condition, Naomi Carter retains full autonomy. Cameras exploded. Naomi's eyes widened, but she nodded. 6 months later, the new Step Forward Rehabilitation Center opened. Children filled the space, designed with their input. Ethan, now using only a light brace, led a dance routine with confidence doctors once said he'd never achieve. Charles stood quietly in the crowd. Naomi whispered beside him, he doesn't need you to hold him anymore. No, Charles agreed. But he needs me present. That's the difference. When asked the biggest lesson he'd learned, Charles Harrington, the man once known only for his empire, looked straight into the camera, that true leaders aren't the ones who insist on leading, but the ones who know when to follow. And so, a billionaire, a waitress, and a boy reminded the world, some revolutions don't start with power or wealth. They begin with a single step, and someone willing to follow. If this story of courage, dignity, and transformation touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and join us to witness more stories that prove one simple step can change lives forever.